Hi everyone, welcome to Procrastination Points Video Snark. This video series isn't an audiobook, it's a science commentary. This series emphasizes reading and listening comprehension skills. My focus is on reading books, identifying areas that miss the mark, and suggesting ways that they could be reimagined. I'm continuing my read-through of Chromatic by Ashley Bustamante. If you haven't seen the earlier videos, you can find the links below. Chapter 9. Jaden starts to attack Ava and breaks her arm. Although she can heal herself, it takes too long. The pain from it and the distraction also prevents her mentalist power from being overly useful. Ava is desperate for people to come running. Literally anybody. The place should be swarming with Ivan's guards, but they're not there. Jaden then explains that there's a lot more sympathy for him and his cause than people would think. He names some random girl and cites that her sister went through the barrier and never returned. She's chomping at the bit to go and fight, even though she herself is a mentalist. But Jaden goes on to say that there's a lot of others in Neo-Prism, non-mentalists, who have had enough of color mixing. Full stop. He also heavily implies that he did something to Ivan's dog, which, nope, pure and unredeemable evil. You don't come back from hurting the dog. Having said his piece, Jaden shoves Ava and runs off. Shows up, battered but seemingly okay for now. She tells him to go get Jaden before he frees Celine. After taking a moment to heal herself, Ava follows in time to be knocked to the ground by a huge explosion. Ava and watch in horror as Jaden and Celine escape via a helicopter. They then run to Evan's office only to find that it was the scene of another battle. He says that his dog was seemingly mind-controlled and attacked him, but he simply doesn't know who would do such a thing. He sends for healers, but also tells Ava and that it's time to bring down the barrier. Later, they do a headcount and discover that 12 of Ivan's soldiers are gone. They interrogate the rest in order to determine if there are any more spies, but most of them simply seem horrified over what happened. Somebody from Ava's group is also gone, although Ava herself wonders if he wasn't taken as a hostage or if has betrayed them. However, since I can't remember who this guy is, I honestly don't care much either way. They also reunite Ivan with Dawes, who is back to his old self after the tranquilizer and some orange magic to break the mentalist hold over him that got him to attack Ivan. Although Jaden didn't hurt Dawes, he's still evil for having used an animal like that. What a monster. Ivan then says that it's long overdue to bring the barrier down, that he thought that they were safe, but obviously they are not. What's worse is now they have a lot of insider information and sympathy and support from citizens. He wants to send people back inside in order to figure out how to turn the barrier off. Ava thinks that the children have something to do with it, that the kids are being hooked up to machines. Since the barrier is white magic, they think simply removing access of the yellow magic kids would dismantle whatever energy is being fed into the barrier. Love my Snark? I also offer book editing services where I bring that same approach to your writing. If you'd prefer a more traditional approach, I also offer professional book editing services. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions about my editing services, including pricing options. Chapter 10. The chapter opens with Mrs. Locke asking why Ava is going instead of letting trained soldiers do their job, which is, in my opinion, peak young adult novel material, what I call Hunger Games phenomena. Why let trained adults do it when you can send in a child? Ava first says that she needs to be doing something. And I kind of get it, but what does she think she's going to be able to do that these trained soldiers can't do? Her second point is that she knows the city, which is kind of a valid point, but then she brings up connections that she has inside, which who? Who is she going to talk to after she's back in the city? Explain it to me like I'm 5. Somebody's parents who are likely to get hurt in the crossfire? An old friend from school who you don't know if they're on your side or not? Ava does mention that some of these soldiers are around the same age as she is. Conveniently missing from this argument is the fact that, again, these are people who have been properly trained how to fight, and obviously Ava was never taught any of that. Her final argument is that Ivan needs to remain in Neo-Prism, which is fine, but why can't she stay behind and help him with intelligence from the other end? I get that we need to do things for the plot, but all of this is paper thin and laughable. There's plenty to do from a military intelligence standpoint. Mrs. Locke then argues that if her daughter is going, then she and her husband will go as well. However, Ava says all this stuff about not knowing who she can trust anymore. Furthermore, her parents have started up a school to help acclimate people to a full magic system, and that they need to be working on that. Before either of them can say anything else, another earthquake happens. It goes on for at least 2 minutes before it finally stops. When it's finally over, Ava says that this has something to do with the barrier. It's stopping plants from growing and causing the animals to go crazy. However, I would like to note that she cites Dawes as an example of the animals going crazy, even though Jaden heavily implied that he'd done something to the dog when Ava confronted him. Later, everyone who's going in gets all packed up to go. The narration name drops a bunch of characters that I have a vague memory of from the second book, but who haven't made an appearance in the book until right now. They were super annoying and kind of flung at us in the second book, and their reappearance now is only further irritating me, mainly because we're taking time away from the actual plot to have conversations that hold no bearing on anything. Although as far as petting goes, this isn't too bad. I've read so much worse. Anyway, they get to the helicopter and head off to a place that Ivan reports was a safe place for them to cross. However, upon getting to the barrier, they notice two things. The first is that it's snowing inside the barrier, despite the fact that it's late spring. The second is that in Celine's absence, they seem to have finally put up patrols along the border. As they watch from above, the benefactors inside taunt them, which I'm picturing total I fart in your general direction levels of nonsense. Since they've come all this way, Ava then decides that they're instead going to parachute down into Magnus. Elm goes first, and Ava is reassured when she sees his parachute open up on the other side, but she can't rest easy not until everybody else has crossed over. If you're interested in reading my own stories, you can purchase my spicy short stories as well as 2 full-length novels on Amazon. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories. If you're not already following me on Reddit, I recommend doing so to stay updated on when I offer free content. Reddit is currently the only place where I'm advertising myself these days. Chapter 11. When Ava drops through the barrier, she's hit with a blast of Arctic air. Her parachute barely slows her down because of the immense winds. After she lands roughly in a snowbank, she realizes that Elm was the reason why she landed more or less okay. After Blake comes down, Ava asks if he can aid Elm in using blue magic to help everybody get down safely. Once everybody is inside, Elm uses his blue magic to make a tarp larger. They all huddle under it to try and get warm. However, the warmth from their bodies reveals that they landed on a frozen river, which they proceed to tumble into. Although Ava tries to help some of the others, it's everything that she can do to get out. It's only from the grace of the author that everybody survives their tumble into the frozen water. As they collect themselves and fish their packs out from the water, Kato suggests to Ava that they should use green magic to make something so that they can get across to others. Half of them having climbed out onto any bank that they could, which now means that they're separated from one another. Ava knows that there won't be anything yellow inside the dome, but she wonders if they could instead use green things to create green magic. They pull on the nearby pine trees and are surprised when the needles turn gray. Together, the two of them manage to create a rather rough-looking rope bridge, but it's enough to get them across the river. Once they're together again, they talk briefly about the weather, about how weird it is that it is so different under the dome than it is outside. They also worry that whatever causes freak snowstorm could spawn more snow. They want to use green magic to create winter clothes for themselves, but the narration is a little hazy and if they actually do that or not. They eventually start walking in the direction of Sky and Gavin's farm, the parents of Bree and Jazz. As they go, Ava hangs back to talk to Blake for a second. He says that he'd like to see his own parents. However, this is inadvisable, seeing as how they're both benefactors. Ava mulls over what Celine might have told them about their son's disappearance, and after a bit of thought, eventually decides that Celine might have spun it to make it seem like Elm kidnapped a bunch of kids away from the school, which honestly sounds about right. She'd already created the perfect scapegoat. Let's continue to blame him for all of our troubles. Blake suggests using orange magic on them, sending the singular success of Marin as proof that it could work on his parents. However, Ava is quick to remind him about Jaden, that orange magic only works if yellow magic is actually used on the person to change their opinion about something. He eventually says that he'll leave the group to go see his parents, to suss out which side he thinks that they're on, or if the orange magic would even help them. Ava says that she'll go with him since his parents liked her immensely. At this point, Blanca chimes in to say that she'd like to go visit her father. Ava doesn't know much about the girl's family, so she asks about him. Blanca explains that her father is sick and no healer can understand what's wrong with him, that her mother and his wife was a mentalist who mysteriously disappeared. She expresses disappointment that she wasn't reunited with their mother in Neoprism like Ava was with her parents. As they continue on, they come to the edge of the family's farm. The crops are obviously ruined from the freak snow, and Ava worries about how the family will financially survive. But as they continue on, they come across the still smoldering remains of the farmhouse. Bree and Jazz are beside themselves with grief and agony over what might have happened to their parents. Although Elm is quick to assure them that they don't know if Galvin and Sky were inside when it happened, Ava can't help but think about the worst, about how evil that the benefactors are. She wonders how they found out, if it wasn't the butterflies, or if maybe Jaden hadn't overheard them talking about it at some point or another. The only thing that they can do is pray that they're somehow okay. Patreon has recently introduced free memberships. By joining, you'll be able to enjoy the same content I post on Tumblr, now conveniently available on Patreon. Patreon supporters can enjoy even more books starting at only $1 a month. Plus, Patreon now offers a 1-week free trial. Don't miss it. Big shout out to Phoebe for supporting me on Patreon already. Also, huge thanks to Josh and Mark for making a one-time donation. If you want to hear your name on my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Chapter 12. Our group of heroes camps out in the remains of the wheat field, using magic to remain invisible and mentalist magic to suggest that anybody approaching should leave. Ava is on the first mentalist shift, and Blake stays up with her to keep her awake. He says that he needs to go see his parents. No, eventually, like Ava suggests, but now. But as you can imagine, this is way more risky than simply walking onto a farm. Olivia and Matthew don't live on a farm, they live in the Purple City, and they're also benefactors, but Blake is hoping that the surprise of their arrival will mean that they can get in, suss out his parents, and get out if things get bad. Blake also says that even if his parents turn against them, then at least he'll have closure, which is such an insanely grim and mess up thing to be thinking about, but at the same time, it's totally understandable. Using the invisibility devices, Blake and Ava walk up to his childhood house. He's surprised that the emergency spare key is still kept in the same spot as it always is. Inside, Ava is surprised at how much of a mess that the house is. Usually it's well kept clean, but now it looks like somebody who has kind of given up a little. Blake reveals himself to his mother, Olivia, and says that Ava is there. Ava wasn't exactly expecting a warm greeting from Olivia, but she gets one anyway. However, Ava is disappointed that Olivia has completely swallowed all of the propaganda about Elm. Olivia is disappointed when they insist that Elm never hurt them or made them do anything that they didn't want to do. She makes them say a secret password, something to sort of prove that they aren't being mind-controlled. Ava has to think hard about it since they picked the password when she was in single digits and barely remembers, but both she and Blake manage to say, "I could go for some blueberry muffins right about now at nearly the same time," which convinces Olivia. Blake then says that the benefactors are being mind-controlled, although she obviously doesn't believe them at first. She does confess that she once saw something kind of odd with Jay several years earlier, that it looked like he'd been doing something with yellow magic, but then she blinked and the object he'd had was gone. And another instance of Jace refusing to do regular augmenter work. At the time, they'd brush it off as he thinks he's above getting his hands dirty, but hearing that he might be a mentalist sure puts that into new perspective. Blake briefly tells his mother about what's been going on. She's obviously a little distressed over the entire thing, but seems willing to hear her son out. Blake asks where Matthew, his father, is. Speaking of Matthew, brings him inside. He's surprised to see the children, but demands their password. Olivia is a little frustrated with it. But when they explain things to him, he seems willing to hear them out as well. However, a little too willingly, if you ask me. Ava feels weird about it as well and keeps looking around for butterflies or literally anything to tip her off that something isn't right. Right then, Olivia uses her magic to pull out their version of an Alexa, I guess. She mentions a game that they used to play in another code phrase. It basically means that whatever this device is, it's been spying on them. See, I told you it was an Alexa. After Matthew destroys it, Olivia explains that the parents of the missing kids were giving them in case Elm tried to contact them, and that at the time they thought nothing of it. Olivia then says that the benefactors will be on their way soon and that they need to go, but Blake refuses because, yeah, they're his parents. Blake and Ava want to go invisible and remain there, but the situation changes when Matthew says that Jace is with the group. Blake and Ava hide in the basement, invisible and ready to leave, but for now they listen at an air vent to hear what's being said upstairs. The benefactors are suspicious about the broken Alexa. Don't look at me like that. You don't get to create a creepy listening device and be surprised that people liken it to something that does the same thing. It's the same with the helicopters. What's worse is that the benefactors have reports from the neighbors that the front door mysteriously opened on its own. I love a surveillance state. The kids are forced out from the basement fire escape when Jay says that he wants to look around. As they hide in the garden, they look into the window and watch as Olivia continues her conversation with a woman that they don't know named Miriam. She's a high-ranking official. Ava thinks it is kind of odd that they send a bunch of high-ranking officials to check this out, but I don't. After a few more minutes, the benefactors say goodbye to Matthew and Olivia, promising to deliver a new Alexa in the morning, but they don't immediately set out because there's still more plot to be learnt. They sat around on the sidewalk in front of the house, God, and everybody and simply talk about how the Alexa picked up on voices that don't belong to either Olivia or Matthew. Then it broke. Suspicious. However, this convinces them that Blake's parents are now a complete liability. One of the benefactors confirms that Jace is holding them in place and asks if the house isn't structurally sound. I would like to remind everybody that they're standing on a public sidewalk in plain view of neighbors that they've openly admitted are spying and reporting about everything, because I kind of feel like that is something that needs to be highlighted. They're not doing this in the shadows. They're simply destroying buildings with people trapped inside quite openly right now. Obviously, they're not simply going to stand around and let these people murder Blake's parents. Ava tries her best to use her mentalist powers to stop this from happening, but she's not powerful enough. All hell breaks loose when Ava decides to reveal herself in order to try and protect her foster parents. This puts the focus on her, and Jace cries out that he'll kill the other benefactors if they fail to capture Ava. However, it doesn't stop them from collapsing the house. Blake cries out in complete anguish as it goes down. Thanks for watching. New Book Snark videos go live every Monday with occasional extras during the week. Your support means so much, even if it's not financial. Watching my videos, subscribing, and liking and sharing them with friends all go a long way in helping my channel grow. If you've already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Facebook, WordPress, Tumblr, or free on Patreon for my main Book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. A link tree for everything is posted below. See you next week, guys!